I turned 69 the week everything in my life quietly began to unravel. It didn't happen with shouting or drama.
No slammed doors.
No obvious betrayal at first. Just a single sentence whispered too close to my ear, wrapped in a smile meant for a camera. Smile, Olivia, you'll need practice for the retirement home. The flash went off before I could react. In the photo, I look radiant, soft curls, a silk blouse, pearls I'd saved for years to buy. My son Daniel stands on one side, his wife Vanessa on the other, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder like she cares. But I remember exactly what I felt in that moment. Cold. Not confusion. Not disbelief. Just a slow, creeping cold that started in my chest and spread outward, as if something inside me had finally gone still. I didn't confront her. I didn't pull away. I smiled, because I've always known how to survive. The rest of the afternoon blurred into polite conversation and carefully arranged plates. I had spent 2 days preparing lunch: roasted chicken, rosemary potatoes, lemon cake from scratch. Vanessa barely touched anything. Daniel complimented the food without looking up from his phone. They stayed exactly 2 hours. Not a minute longer. As I stood at the sink afterward, rinsing dishes I didn't remember anyone finishing, I heard their voices drift in from the hallway. "She's slipping more lately," Vanessa said. I froze. She asked me twice last week where I parked. Twice. That was a lie. I remembered clearly I had asked once, and she had ignored me the first time. Daniel sighed. "I know. I've noticed it too." "No, you haven't," I thought. "You just stopped paying attention." "We can't wait too long," she continued. "It's not safe for her to be alone in that house. That house. Not my home. Not the place where I raised him. Where I buried my husband. Where every wall held pieces of a life I built with my own hands. Just a house." "I'll start looking into places," Daniel said quietly. "Places." I gripped the edge of the sink so tightly my fingers hurt. That was the moment something shifted, not in them, but in me. Because I realized they weren't worried about me. They were planning me. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked through every room of my home slowly, deliberately, as if seeing it for the first time. The living room still smelled faintly of lavender polish. The bookshelf held the same worn novels I'd read during long winters. The hallway walls were lined with photos. Daniel as a boy, missing teeth and grinning. My husband James with his arm around me. Both of us sunburned and laughing. Back when everything felt permanent. Back when I was someone people listened to. I stopped in the kitchen and ran my hand along the countertop. I had chosen every detail in this house. Every tile. Every curtain. Every piece of furniture. And now they were deciding what to do with it. Without me. That was when I understood something important. This wasn't about my safety. It wasn't even about my age. It was about control. And I had just been quietly removed from my own life. The next morning, I woke up clearer than I had in years.
No sadness. No denial.
Just clarity. If they thought I was weak, they had made a mistake. If they thought I would notice, they had made a bigger one. And if they believed I would simply agree to disappear quietly, they didn't know me at all. Daniel had given me a key to his house years ago. Just in case, he'd said. I had never used it. Until now. I waited until I saw their car leave the driveway. 10:15 a.m., right on schedule. Vanessa was predictable. Always had been. The drive overtook 12 minutes. I remember every second. Not because I was nervous, but because I already knew I wouldn't like what I'd find. Still, I needed proof. Their house was spotless. Not clean, sterile. Everything was white, cold, perfectly arranged.
No clutter. No personality. No worms.
It didn't feel lived in. It felt staged. Like a place where people performed a life instead of living one. I started in Daniel's office. At first, it looked ordinary: laptop, papers, a framed degree. But then I opened the top drawer. That's when everything changed. Brochures,
Dozens of them.
assisted living facilities, long-term care centers, memory support communities, each one marked with notes in Vanessa's handwriting. Too expensive. Bad reviews. No private units. I kept going. At the bottom of the stack, one brochure had a circle drawn around the price. Underneath it, she had written, "Basic care only." Basic
Care.
only. I sat down slowly. That wasn't planning for my comfort. That was budgeting for my disappearance. But it got worse. Much worse. In a folder beneath the brochures, I found legal documents.
Drafts.
Notes from consultations. Terms like power of attorney, competency evaluation, and asset transition. My hands didn't shake. Not yet. I took photos of everything. Every page. Every note. Every detail. Because I wanted to remember exactly how far they had gone. In the bedroom, I found the final piece. A notebook in Vanessa's nightstand.
Neat.
Organized. Methodical. Like everything she did. I flipped it open. And there it was. A plan. Written in phases. Phase 1. Establish concern, memory lapses, safety issues. Phase 2. Reinforce narrative with Daniel. Phase 3. Introduce assisted living. Phase 4. Legal control of assets. Phase 5. Sell property. I stopped reading. Not because I couldn't continue, but because I didn't need to. I understood everything. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't emotional. This wasn't even personal to her. It was strategic, calculated, cold. When I left their house, I didn't feel broken. I felt focused. There's a kind of clarity that comes when illusion disappears completely. When you stop hoping people will be better than they are. When you finally see the truth without trying to soften it. Daniel wasn't confused. Vanessa wasn't misunderstood. They were deliberate.
And now so was I.
That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and a blank notebook. Not to process. Not to grieve. To plan. Because if they wanted to write the ending of my life for me, I was going to rewrite the entire story. And I was going to do it in a way they would never forget. Before I could act, though, I needed one thing. Not money. Not power. Not even revenge. I needed someone I could trust. And surprisingly, I already knew exactly who that was. Her name was Elena. She came twice a week to help with cleaning and errands. Quiet. Observant.
Kind in a way that didn't feel forced.
She never rushed me. Never talked down to me. Never treated me like I was already halfway gone. Which I realized now made her very different from my own family. When she arrived that evening, I watched her carefully. The way she moved through the house. The way she spoke. The way she listened. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I should have asked long ago. Who in my life actually sees me? Elena, I said. She turned, surprised by the tone in my voice. Yes, Olivia? I studied her for a moment. Then I asked the question that would change everything. Tell me honestly, do you think I'm someone who can be easily pushed aside? Her expression shifted instantly. Not confusion. Not discomfort. Something sharper. Never, she said. And, for the first time in a very long while, I smiled for real. I didn't tell Elena everything right away. Not because I didn't trust her, but because trust, real trust, is something you confirm, not assume. I had spent years assuming things about people who had proven me wrong, and I wasn't about to repeat that mistake. So instead, I started slowly, carefully, like someone testing the strength of ice before stepping onto it. Elena, I said later that afternoon as she folded laundry at the kitchen table, Can I ask you something a little unusual? She gave a small smile, still smoothing one of my blouses. You can ask me anything. I watched her hands. Steady, precise. Not the hands of someone careless or distracted. Are you happy? I asked. She paused, not dramatically, not suspiciously, just long enough to consider the question properly. Then she looked up at me, her eyes soft but honest. I am grateful, she said, but happy, that depends on the day. That answer told me more than anything rehearsed ever could. Do you like working here? I pressed. Her expression warmed slightly.
Yes.
You're different from most people. You talk to me like I matter. That settled something inside me, because that's exactly how I had felt about her. Over the next few days, I asked more questions. Not directly about my situation, never that obvious, but about her life.
Her past.
Her plans. What I learned changed everything. Elena hadn't always cleaned houses. Back in her home country, Romania, she told me quietly, she had been a licensed nurse. She worked in a public hospital, long shifts, difficult conditions, but she loved it. She spoke about it not with pride, but with a kind of calm certainty, like someone who knows exactly who they are when they're doing what they're meant to do. Then life intervened. Her husband died unexpectedly.
A construction accident.
No warning, no second chances. Suddenly, she was alone with 2 children and no financial stability. Coming to the United States hadn't been a dream. It had been a necessity. I thought it would be easier here, she admitted one evening while wiping down the counters. But starting over, it's like becoming invisible again. Invisible. The word stayed with me, because I understood it far too well. She worked multiple jobs, sent money home every month, lived in a shared apartment with 3 other women. Everything she did, every hour, every dollar, was for her children. And you haven't seen them? I asked. She shook her head. Almost 4 years now. For years. I tried to imagine not seeing my child for 4 years. Then I realized, in some ways I already hadn't. That night, after she left, I sat alone in the living room, the silence no longer heavy, but sharp. Focused. Because now, for the first time since that Mother's Day whisper, I wasn't just reacting. I was deciding. Daniel and Vanessa had made a plan. So would I. But mine wouldn't be based on greed. It would be based on something they clearly didn't understand anymore. Value. The next morning, I called my attorney. His name was Richard Hale. I had known him for over 20 years. He had handled my husband's estate, helped me navigate paperwork I didn't understand back then, and most importantly, he had never once spoken to me like I was incapable of making my own decisions. Olivia, he said when I walked into his office later that day, you sound serious. What's going on? I want to make changes, I said, sitting down across from him. Significant ones. He leaned back slightly, studying me, not questioning, just assessing. Go on. So I told him. Everything. The whisper. The conversation I overheard.
The brochures.
The documents. The plan. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't soften it either. I just told the truth. By the time I finished, the air in the room had changed. Are you certain about what you found? He asked. Yes. And how you want to proceed? I met his eyes. Completely. He nodded slowly. Then tell me what you're thinking. I want to transfer ownership of my home, I said. He didn't interrupt. Not through a will, I continued. Immediately. While I'm alive. That got his attention. To whom? I took a breath. To Elena. Silence. Not disbelief, just careful consideration. That's a substantial decision, he said finally. Are you absolutely sure? Yes. Why? It wasn't a challenge. It was a question that deserved a real answer. Because she sees me, I said simply. Because she treats me like a person, not a problem. Because she's building a life for her children without asking anyone for anything. And because I would rather my home belong to someone who values it than someone who is already planning how to get rid of me. Richard didn't respond immediately. He folded his hands, thinking. Then he said, "Your son will contest this." "I expect him to. And his wife sounds determined." "She is." He nodded again. "Then we do this properly." The next hour was precise, detailed,
Strategic.
exactly what I needed. He explained everything: how to transfer the property legally, how to protect the decision from being challenged, how to document my mental capacity beyond question. "We'll need medical evaluations," he said. "Possibly more than one. If they try to claim you were influenced or not competent, we shut that down immediately." "Do whatever is necessary," I told him. "And Olivia," he added, his tone more careful now, "once this is done, there's no reversing it without her consent." "I understand." He studied me one more time. "Then let's begin." Over the next week, everything moved quickly but quietly. Doctor's appointments, assessments, paperwork, signatures. Each step felt less like loss and more like reclaiming something. Control. Meanwhile, Daniel and Vanessa continued their performance. They called more often, visited more frequently, spoke to me slowly,
Carefully.
like I might break. I played along.
Of course I did.
"Oh, I've been a bit forgetful lately," I would say lightly. "Oh, dear, I must have missed that. I suppose I am getting older." Every word was deliberate, because while they were building their case, I was dismantling it. Elena didn't know yet. Not the full plan. Not the extent of it. I needed to be sure everything was ready first, because when I told her, there would be no going back. The papers were finalized on a Thursday, filed officially on Friday morning. By Friday afternoon,
My house was no longer mine.
and I had never felt more certain of anything in my life. That evening, Elena arrived as usual. Same quiet knock, same careful steps inside. But I was waiting for her. "Elena," I said, gesturing toward the chair across from me. "Sit down for a moment." She looked concerned immediately. "Is something wrong?" "No," I said. "Something is about to change." She sat slowly, watching me closely. I reached for the folder on the table, and for the first time since this all began, I allowed myself to feel something close to anticipation. "I need you to listen carefully," I said. She nodded, and I placed the documents in front of her. Elena didn't touch the papers right away. She stared at them as if they might disappear if she blinked too quickly, her hands resting flat against her knees, her breathing just slightly uneven. I could see the moment her instincts told her something serious was happening, but not yet what kind of serious. "Olivia," she said carefully, "what is this?" "Read it," I replied. My voice was calm. Too calm, maybe. But inside, I was watching everything. Her eyes, her posture, the way she hesitated before finally reaching forward. She picked up the top document, and everything changed. At first, she read like someone trying to understand legal language, slowly, line by line. But then I saw it happen. Recognition. Her eyes moved faster, then stopped, then went back, then forward again. Her fingers tightened around the page. "No," she whispered. I didn't interrupt. She flipped to the next page, then the next, and then she looked up at me, not confused, not curious, overwhelmed. "Olivia, this says." "I know what it says." "You transferred ownership," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Your home to me." "Yes." She shook her head immediately, pushing the papers slightly away as if they burned.
No.
"No, this isn't right." I can't accept this. There it was. The reaction I expected. Not greed. Not excitement. Refusal. And that told me I had made the right choice. Elena, I said gently, look at me. She did, but reluctantly, like she already knew this conversation would force her into something she wasn't ready for. I didn't do this impulsively, I continued. This wasn't emotional. It was planned. Carefully. Legally. Completely. But why? She asked, her voice rising slightly now. Why would you give me something like this? I'm just... Don't. I cut in, sharper than I intended. Don't reduce yourself in front of me. She fell silent. You are not just anything, I said more quietly. And this decision wasn't about charity. It was about value. She swallowed hard, still shaking her head. Your family, she started. My family, I said evenly, was planning to remove me from this house and sell it. That stopped her completely. I didn't soften it. I didn't protect her from the truth. I told her everything. The whisper, the lies, the documents, the plan. I watched her expression change as the pieces came together. Not slowly, but sharply. Like someone stepping into cold water all at once. They wanted to say you're not capable? She asked quietly. Yes. And take control of everything? Yes. And you still, she looked back at the papers, you still chose to give this to me? Yes. There was a long silence. The kind that isn't empty, but full of understanding forming in real time. I can't take your home, she said finally, softer now, but still firm. This is your life. Your memories. Your history. And what would you prefer? I asked. That I leave it to people who see me as an inconvenience. That's not what I mean. I know what you mean, I said. But listen carefully, Elena. This house is not just walls and furniture. It's time. It's energy. It's everything I've built. And I decide what happens to it. She looked at me, searching for hesitation. She didn't find any. I chose you, I continued, because you understand what it means to build something from nothing. Because you know how to take care of people not just physically but with dignity. Because when I speak, you listen. And because when I'm in this house with you, I don't feel like I'm waiting to disappear. That hit her. I saw it. The shift. Her resistance didn't disappear, but it changed. Less rejection. More conflict. But what about you? She asked. Where will you go? I almost smiled. Why would I go anywhere? She blinked. I assumed. I'm not leaving my home, I said calmly. I'm changing who it belongs to. Her confusion deepened. You would still live here, I clarified. This doesn't remove me. It protects me. She stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly she understood. You're making it impossible for them, she said quietly. Yes. They can't force you out if it's not your property. Exactly. And they can't sell it.
No.
And they can't claim control over your assets. I shook my head. They've already lost. Elena leaned back slightly, her hands now gripping the edge of the table instead of the papers. She exhaled slowly. This is bigger than me. It is, I agreed. But that doesn't mean it's not right. She looked down again. Her eyes lingered on her name.
Anna.
Printed clearly. Legally.
Permanently.
My children, she said after a moment, almost to herself. They could come here. We wouldn't have to share that apartment anymore. I could work in my field again. Yes. They would have their own rooms. Yes. They could go to school here. Yes. Her voice cracked slightly. I could be their mother again, not just someone who sends money. That was the moment. Not when she saw the value of the house, but when she saw the possibility of a life. Tears slipped down her face quietly. Not dramatic. Not overwhelming. Just real. I don't know how to accept something like this, she admitted. You don't need to know how, I said. You just need to decide if you will. She wiped her face quickly, embarrassed. I don't want to take advantage of you. You're not. I don't want your family to hate me.
They already will.
That almost made her laugh, almost. You're not taking anything from me? I said. You're giving something back. She frowned slightly. What do you mean? I'm not losing my home, I said. I'm choosing who shares it with me. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't resistance. It was acceptance trying to form.
Slowly. Carefully.
Honestly. Finally, she picked up the papers again. Not to reject them.
To hold them.
I'm afraid, she admitted. I know. This changes everything. Yes. And your son, when he finds out. I leaned back in my chair. For the first time in years, I said quietly, that's not my concern. She looked at me differently after that. Not like an employer. Not even like an older woman she cared for. But like someone who had made a decision that couldn't be undone. And didn't regret it. I will take care of you, she said suddenly. I raised an eyebrow. I always have. No, she shook her head, more firmly now. Not like before. Not because it's my job. Because it's my choice. That mattered. More than the house. More than the plan. That mattered. I know, I said. And for the first time since all of this began, I believed it. That night, after she left, I sat alone again. But it wasn't the same kind of alone. Something had shifted. Not just in my situation. In my life. Because Daniel and Vanessa thought they were taking control of my future. But they had actually forced me to redefine it. And soon, they were going to find out exactly how badly they had miscalculated. The days leading up to Monday felt almost unreal. Not because I was uncertain, but because everything had become so precise, so controlled, that even the smallest interactions felt like part of a larger design. Every word I spoke to Daniel, every glance I exchanged with Vanessa, every pause in conversation, it all mattered now. And they had no idea. That was the strangest part. They believed they were ahead of me. They believed I was slowly giving in. Daniel started calling more often. At first, it sounded like concern. Hey, Mom, just checking in. How are you feeling today? But I could hear it underneath. Measurement. Observation. Assessment. I'm all right, I would reply, adding just enough hesitation to make it believable. A little tired, maybe. A pause. Then relief in his voice. Yeah, that's normal. You've been doing a lot. Not you're strong. Not you're fine. Just confirmation. Exactly what he wanted to hear. Vanessa was more direct. She visited twice that week, unannounced both times. The first visit, she walked in already scanning the house, her eyes moving from the kitchen counters to the hallway, to the living room like she was inspecting a property she planned to acquire. Olivia, she said with that perfectly controlled smile, we've been worried about you. I almost admired how easily she said it. I appreciate that, I replied gently. Her eyes lingered on me, studying, testing, looking for cracks. So I gave her one. A small one. I did forget where I left my glasses yesterday, I added casually. She didn't react immediately, but I saw it. That flicker. Satisfaction. See, she said softly, turning slightly toward Daniel. These things are happening more often. Daniel nodded, his expression tightening. Not with concern, but with something closer to validation. They were building their case, and I was feeding it to them. Maybe it's time we look at some options, he said carefully. Just to be safe. Options. Such a harmless word. Such a dangerous meaning. I lowered my eyes slightly, letting my shoulders relax just enough to appear uncertain. I don't know, I murmured. Vanessa stepped closer, her tone soft, almost comforting. You don't have to decide anything right away. Just explore. There are beautiful places. Comfortable. Safe. Safe. For whom? I let the silence stretch, then nodded. All right, I said. And just like that, they thought they had won. The change in their behavior was immediate, subtle, but undeniable. Daniel relaxed. Vanessa smiled more openly. Their voices carried a new tone, not cautious, but assured, like everything was finally going according to plan. 2 days later, Daniel called again. We scheduled a visit, he said. Saturday morning. Just a tour. No pressure. I smiled to myself before answering. That sounds reasonable. Reasonable. That word seemed to please him. Saturday arrived gray and quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows as I got dressed. Not in something casual. Not in something fragile. But in something deliberate. A structured navy dress. Low heels. My hair neatly styled. Because even if they thought I was fading, I wasn't going to look like it. They picked me up at exactly 10. Vanessa in the passenger seat. Daniel driving. Neither of them noticed how calm I was. Or maybe they mistook it for resignation. The drive was quiet at first. Then Vanessa began. They have activities, she said lightly. Group events, games, social gatherings. I nodded. That's nice. And medical staff on site, Daniel added. Just in case. Of course. My voice was steady. Too steady. But they didn't question it. The facility was exactly what I expected. Large. Neutral. Clean in a way that erased personality. The sign out front read Silver Oaks Living Center. A gentle name. A quiet disguise. Inside, everything smelled like disinfectant and something faintly sweet, like they were trying to mask something underneath. Our guide introduced herself quickly, her smile bright but practiced. She spoke in a tone I recognized immediately. Not to me. At me. Like I was already halfway gone. She showed us the dining area first. Rows of tables. People sitting in silence. Some staring at their plates. Some staring at nothing at all. One woman looked directly at me. And for a moment, I saw it. Recognition. Not of me, but of what I represented. We moved through the hallways slowly. Doors half open. Televisions playing too loudly. A man sitting in a wheelchair, unmoving, his eyes fixed on the floor. This is our recreation room, the guide chirped. A television flickered in the corner. No one was watching it. Finally, she opened a door. A typical residence suite. It was small. Neat. Completely empty of life. A bed. A chair. A window facing a parking lot. I stepped inside, took a slow breath, and imagined it. My books gone. My photos gone. My kitchen replaced by a tray. My life reduced to a single room. What do you think? Daniel asked. I turned and smiled. It's lovely. The relief on his face was instant. Vanessa's shoulders relaxed. They didn't question the smile. They didn't question the word. They didn't question anything. When could I move in? I added. That sealed it. The ride back was different. Lighter. They spoke more freely now. Vanessa even laughed. A soft, satisfied sound. They had no idea that the entire time they were already too late. Monday morning arrived clear and bright. I woke up early, made coffee, sat in the kitchen for a long moment, not thinking, not doubting, just ready. At exactly 9 o'clock, I called Daniel. Can you come by this morning? I asked. You and Vanessa. A pause. Then immediate interest. Of course. Everything okay? I've made a decision, I said. That was all he needed to hear. They arrived quickly. Too quickly. Like they had been waiting for this moment. Vanessa carried a folder.
Of course she did.
We sat in the living room. My chair. Their place on the couch. The same positions as always. But everything had changed. I've been thinking about the future. I began. Daniel leaned forward. Vanessa opened her folder slightly. Ready. I agree with you. I continued. You do? Daniel asked. Yes, I said. It's time to make some changes. Their faces softened.
Victory.
Vanessa pulled out papers. I've prepared. I raised my hand. Before we get to that, there's something you should know. Silence. Attention. Expectation. I reached into my bag and placed the document on the table. I've already made arrangements, I said calmly. The room changed instantly. And just like that, their plan ended. The moment I placed the document on the table, the air in the room shifted so sharply it almost felt physical. Vanessa's hand froze halfway over her folder. Daniel's expression tightened. Not confusion yet, not fear, but something like hesitation, as if his instincts were trying to warn him that whatever came next wasn't part of the script. I've already made arrangements, I repeated calmly. Silence. The kind that stretches just long enough to become uncomfortable. What arrangements? Daniel asked. His voice was careful. Too careful. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I nudged the paper slightly toward them. Read it. Vanessa moved first. Of course she did. She reached forward, picked up the document, and began scanning it quickly. Too quickly at first, the way people do when they assume they already understand what they're about to see. But then her eyes slowed, then stopped, then went back. I watched her face lose color in real time. What is this? She said sharply. Daniel leaned in, taking the paper from her hands. And then it was his turn. No, he said under his breath. Just that one word. Quiet. Disbelieving. I sat back in my chair. For the first time in years, I felt completely still. It's exactly what it looks like, I said. Daniel looked up at me, his face pale. This says you transferred ownership of the house. Yes. He swallowed, glancing back down. To Elena? Yes. Vanessa stood up so abruptly the chair behind her scraped loudly against the floor. This isn't funny, she snapped. I'm not joking. Her eyes flicked between me and the document, searching for something. An error, a loophole, a sign that this was temporary, reversible, anything. This can't be valid, she said quickly. You can't just give away property like this without. I can, I interrupted. And I did. Daniel shook his head slowly, like he was trying to wake himself up. Mom, why would you do something like this? There it was. Not concern, not hurt. Confusion rooted in entitlement. Because I chose to, I said simply. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. Vanessa grabbed the paper again, scanning it more aggressively now. This is insane, she muttered. This is completely insane. You gave your entire property to a stranger. Elena is not a stranger. She's your cleaner. She's a nurse, I corrected calmly, and a better human being than either of you have shown yourselves to be recently. That landed hard. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. This doesn't make sense, he said. You've been confused lately. You've been forgetting things. You're not thinking clearly. I almost smiled, because that was exactly what I had been waiting for. No, I said evenly. I haven't been confused. Both of them froze. You just needed me to be. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. What is that supposed to mean? It means, I continued, my voice steady, that I know about your plan. Silence. Total. Immediate. Daniel stopped moving. Vanessa didn't speak. They didn't need to, because they understood. I know about the brochures, I said. The notes. The pricing comparisons. Vanessa's grip tightened on the paper. I know about the legal consultations, the discussions about competency, the asset transfers. Daniel's face drained further. And I know, I added quietly, about the timeline you wrote in your notebook. That did it. How did you? Vanessa started. You gave me a key, I said, looking directly at Daniel. His eyes closed briefly, just for a second, but it was enough. You went into her house? He asked. Yes. You had no right. No right. I interrupted, my voice sharper now. You were planning to take everything I own, declare me incompetent, and place me in a facility like I was already gone. And you want to talk to me about rights? Vanessa's composure cracked first. You're twisting things, she snapped. We were trying to help you. Help me? I repeated.
Yes.
You can't live alone forever. You're getting older. You're forgetting things. It's dangerous. I'm not forgetting anything, I said coldly. That stopped her. I remember every conversation. I continued. Every lie, every look, every time you spoke about me like I wasn't in the room. Daniel sat down heavily, his hands clasped together. Mom, we were just trying to plan ahead. No, I said. You were planning me out. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, final. Vanessa recovered first. She always did. This won't hold up, she said, her voice tight but controlled again. We can challenge this. We'll have you evaluated. No court will accept that a mentally stable person would give away this kind of asset to someone unrelated. I leaned back slightly. Try. They both looked at me. Really looked this time. I anticipated that, I said. That's why I completed full medical and psychological evaluations before signing anything. Vanessa blinked. Daniel frowned. 3 separate professionals, I continued, all confirming that I am fully competent, fully aware, and entirely capable of making my own decisions. Vanessa's confidence faltered, just slightly, but enough. You planned this, she said quietly. Yes. Daniel looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Mom, why didn't you talk to me? I held his gaze. Would you have listened? He didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. I would have helped you, I added, if you had asked, if you had been honest, if you had treated me like your mother instead of a problem to solve. Vanessa laughed bitterly. So, instead, you gave everything away out of spite? No, I said calmly. I gave it to someone who deserved it. That hurt her more than anything else. What about us? Daniel asked quietly. There it was. Finally. What about you? I repeated. We're your family. I nodded slowly. You were. That word hung in the air. Heavy. Unavoidable. Vanessa stepped forward again, anger returning. This isn't over, she said. We will fight this. You can try, I replied, but you won't win. Daniel looked between us, then back at me, and for a brief moment, I saw something real. Not entitlement, not calculation, regret. But it was too late. Where are you even going to live? Vanessa demanded. I smiled. Here. She frowned. What? Elena has already offered me a room. That confused her more than anything else. She wants me here, I added. Not because she has to, because she chooses to. Silence again, but this time, it belonged to me. After a moment, Daniel stood up, slowly, like the weight of everything had finally settled. We should go, he said quietly. Vanessa didn't move at first. Then, finally, she dropped the paper back onto the table. They left without another word. The door closed behind them, And just like that, it was over.
Not the story.
But the illusion. I sat there for a long time after they left. Not moving, not thinking, just breathing. For the first time in years. I wasn't waiting for someone else to decide what happened next. Because I already had. And this time, I chose myself. The house felt different after they left. Not quieter, because it had already been quiet for years, but clearer. Like something heavy had finally been removed, something I hadn't fully realized I'd been carrying every single day. I sat in my chair for a long time, not out of shock or exhaustion, but because there was nothing left to brace myself against.
No tensión.
No waiting.
No pretending. Just stillness.
And for the first time in a very long time, it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Elena arrived later that afternoon, her usual soft knock breaking the silence in a way that felt natural, not intrusive. I heard her step inside, pause briefly, as she always did, before calling out gently, "Olivia?" "I'm in the living room," I replied. She walked in, took one look at me, and stopped. Not because something was wrong, but because something was different. "They came, didn't they?" she asked. "Yes." And I let out a small breath. They know everything. She didn't ask anything else right away. Instead, she sat down across from me, watching carefully, the way she always did when she sensed something important had just happened. "Are you all right?" she asked. I considered the question. Not automatically, not out of habit, but honestly. "Yes," I said. "I am." And I meant it. Over the next few days, the aftermath unfolded exactly as I expected. Daniel called first.
Once. Twice. 3 times.
I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because I no longer felt obligated. That was new. Vanessa didn't call. She sent messages. Short at first, then longer, then sharper, then desperate. I read them all. I didn't respond to any, because for the first time, I understood something very clearly. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes, it's the strongest answer you can give. A week later, a letter arrived from a lawyer. Formal, predictable, threatening in tone, but not in substance. They were contesting the transfer, claiming undue influence, questioning my mental capacity. I took it to Richard. He read it once, then smiled slightly. "They're too late," he said. "I know. They don't have a case." "I know." And that was the end of that. Not dramatically, not explosively, just finished. Meanwhile, life inside the house began to change. Not suddenly, not all at once, but steadily, like something long asleep was waking up. Elena started making plans. Real ones. Not just surviving, but building. She spoke to an immigration attorney, began the process of bringing her children to the United States, started preparing documents, saving money, organizing everything with a level of determination I recognized immediately. Not frantic. Focused. "I didn't think this would ever be possible," she admitted one evening as we sat in the kitchen. "It is now," I said. She nodded, but I could see it. The disbelief hadn't fully left her yet. And maybe it never would, because some opportunities don't feel real, even when they are. 2 months later, everything changed again. I stood in the doorway as Elena opened it. Her hands were trembling, not from fear, from anticipation. 3 figures stood on the other side. A girl,
A boy.
and a smaller child between them. For a moment, no one moved. Then Elena stepped forward, and everything broke open. She pulled them into her arms, all 3 at once, her composure gone completely, replaced by something raw and powerful and undeniable. Her children held onto her like they had been holding their breath for years. Because in many ways,
They had.
I stepped back quietly, not to distance myself, but to give that moment the space it deserved. Later, she brought them inside, introduced them one by one. "This is Olivia," she said softly. "She's the reason we're here." They looked at me differently, not like children meeting a stranger, but like something else, something they didn't yet have words for. "Thank you," the oldest said. Simple,
Direct.
more meaningful than anything else that could have been said. The house changed after that.
Completely. There were voices now.
Footsteps, laughter, doors opening and closing, music playing from somewhere down the hall. The kitchen became alive again, messy, loud, full of conversation and movement and warmth. And me? I didn't fade into the background. I didn't become invisible. I became part of it. They didn't treat me like someone fragile. They didn't speak slowly around me. They didn't watch me like I might disappear.
They included me.
Naturally, effortlessly. One evening, the youngest, her name was Sophia, walked up to me while I was sitting by the window. "Can I sit with you?" she asked. "Of course." She climbed up beside me without hesitation. Comfortable.
Certain.
"My mama says you gave us this home," she said. "Yes."
Why?
I looked at her for a moment, then answered honestly. "Because I wanted to."
She thought about that.
Then nodded, as if that was enough. "Can I call you Grandma?" she asked. The question was so simple, so unguarded. I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said. And just like that, something in my life that had been quietly breaking for years finally healed. Months passed, not slowly, not quickly, just fully. Elena returned to nursing. Her children started school. The house found a rhythm that felt real, not forced, not fragile. One afternoon, I saw a familiar car drive slowly past the house. Daniel. He didn't stop, didn't get out.
Just drove by.
I watched from the window, not with anger, not with longing, just awareness. Because I understood something now that I hadn't before. Family isn't defined by who stays. It's defined by who shows up. And, in the end, that made all the difference. That evening, we sat together at the dinner table. All of us.
Talking.
Laughing. Sharing stories that didn't feel like obligations, but like connections. I looked around the room. At Elena. At her children. At the life that had grown out of something that once felt like loss. And I realized something simple. Something undeniable. I hadn't lost anything. I had finally chosen where I belonged. And for the first time in years, I was exactly where I was meant to be,